Hi OpenBoxes users. In this video, we're going to go over how to see and calculate your demand, both by product and for a range of products. So the first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about how you can see demand for an individual product on the electronic stock card, and then we'll go over the request details report, which will allow you to see your demand across a wide range of products. So the first thing we're going to do then is access our electronic stock card. You can access your electronic stock card in a variety of ways, but the easiest one is just typing into the search bar what product you want to see. So I know that what I'm looking for is insulin NPH. So I'm going to type in insulin. There are a lot of different insulin products. The one I'm looking for specifically is this one, NPH Lente. So I'm going to click here. And this brings me to our product stock card. So there are a few ways to see demand on the product stock card. The first one, and the most straightforward, is here on the status page. This gives you one figure for demand, and it also gives you your on-hand months. So which is your quantity on hand divided by your demand. So in this case, we have 0 months on hand because 12 divided by 298 is a very small decimal number. So where does this number come from? Well, we're going to dig into that by looking at the demand tab. But essentially what this has done is it has tallied all of your requests over the course of the last 6 months. In fact, to be more accurate, 180 days. And it has divided the demand from all of those, that summed demand for the last 180 days by month. So it's divided by 180 and then multiplied by 30 to get the average per month that you have used. So this demand is explicitly based on 6 months. If it looks different than other ways that you calculate your demand in the system, that's probably why. If you're calculating your demand based on even 183 days, and this demand is calculated based on 181 days in the past, or if you're calculating, based on something quite different, like 12 months in the past, you are going to see that this number is not exactly the same. So take that into account. This is an average demand based on 6 months. So what do you do if you want to see more detailed demand information? Well, you go over here to the demand tab, and clicking will bring you up this page. You'll notice there's a little warning at the top here. Totals and monthly averages are for the time period specified, and the default time period is 12 months, excluding the current month and any month before the oldest request. So what exactly does that mean? Well, it means that this defaults to the last 12 months, but it doesn't include this month. So if I'm on the 15th of October, the end date here is going to be September 30, and the start date is going to be exactly 12 months in the past. You can change these dates as much as you want, but that is what this defaults to. The exception is if you have never issued this product before, or you haven't issued this product for you've only been issuing this product for 3 months, then it will default to the range of months during which you've ever issued this product. And the idea with that is that we are taking into account the fact that a product may be new. So we don't necessarily want to always average demand over the last 12 months because maybe you only received this product 3 months ago. So if there's no history before 3 months, then this will default to only showing you 3 months. Now, as I said, you can change the start date and end date for what this shows, but before I do that, I'm going to dig into what exactly this data means. So the first thing we're going to look at is All the data is summarized by month issued, and it shows you the amount requested, issued, and the demand that is calculated based on that. Now and then at the bottom, you can see where we're getting our monthly numbers. So we have 275 as our monthly demand based on the last 12 months, a little bit different than 298, which is based on the last 6. Now, how are we distinguishing between requested, issued, and demand? Well, that's a great question, and it is based on the outbound stock movement workflow. So if you aren't familiar with the outbound stock movement workflow, I would recommend pausing this video and getting a little bit more familiar with that process so that you can really understand where this data is coming from. But the gist of it is that every outbound stock movement starts with a request. So if I click on these months, you can see that the summary here is based on a sum of all of the requests for this product that happened in that month. I can see the date requested, and I can see the date issued, and then I can see the destination of the request and how much was requested, issued, the reason code, which we'll talk about, and the demand. So if you remember, in the outbound stock movement workflow, the first thing that you do is enter what was requested. You don't enter necessarily what you're going to issue, you just enter what did the person actually request. So that's this first number here. And that is really the most important aspect of demand, because if someone requested 30 because they need 30 and we had 0, so we didn't issue any, that request still matters. That still indicates a demand, even if we weren't able to fill it. So that's the idea behind the quantity requested. In a perfect world, it would look exactly like this. We would issue exactly what was requested, and so then our request, our amount issued, which you might also call our consumption, and our demand should all be exactly the same. But we know that that doesn't always happen. Sometimes there are reasons where a request gets changed in the process and a different number is issued. So how do we use that to calculate demand? Well, we use this reason code. If you'll remember, in the outbound stock movement workflow, there are a variety of reason codes. You can choose stock out, low stock, pack size change, clinical substitution, clinical review. There are a variety of different options that you can choose from. Each of those reason codes is classified in one of 2 ways broadly. Either it's a clinical judgment, which covers everything from the number was revised down by the pharmacy team because they felt that the consumption didn't justify the request. It even covers if the number was revised because of a data accuracy error. It covers pack size. So clinical judgment is a little bit of a misnomer. It's really basically saying any reason that is not because we didn't have enough stock. So if we revise this request for any reason besides that we didn't have enough stock, what we issued is our demand. You can see in this case, we had a request from Centre Saint-Baptiste, and they requested 20. It was revised down to 10 because the reason it was revised down to 10 was a clinical judgment. Like I said, it falls under that umbrella of reasons that are not related to inventory issues. Then our demand is determined to be the exact amount that we issued, which is 10 for that request. Now, if instead we had an issue with stockouts, like we clearly did in this month, you can see that in February, we had a request from Ash Depot. They requested 100 and only 50 were issued. And the reason was insufficient quantity available. So once again, this is an umbrella of a few reason codes. The product is damaged, the product is expired, low stock, stock out. But all of them boil down to we didn't have enough. We know that they actually need this product, but we didn't have enough. So in the case where that reason code is applied, our demand equals our request. In that case, our consumption, our 50, our number issued, is actually too low. It doesn't reflect what was actually needed. And so our demand is calculated as 100. So that's a really important distinction. And that's how we calculate demand request by request. Then how do we calculate it overall? Well, essentially we just add up every request that has ever come in to this depot or has come in over the time period. And then we divide it by the number of months. So we have the sum of the demand for all of these requests, which is here, our total, and we divide that by our 12-month time period. And this exact same method is used for calculating this demand here. It's just that the time period is slightly different. It's 6 months. So this is a really great way if you want to understand exactly why something is calculating, why demand is calculating in a particular way for a particular product. On this page, you can really dig into exactly what is happening, even on the individual request level, and you can even click through to the requests to see any additional information. You can also filter this page by destination. So if you wanted to see specifically only demand to a certain location from this depot, you could refresh the data and you can see the demand now is much smaller. It's 66 a month because we're only looking at one particular depot that is requesting here, and we can see the details. So that's how you see your demand for one product. But what if you want to do a demand analysis? What if you want to actually, forecast based on your demand? Well, there are a couple of ways to do that. But the best way to look at the details of your demand is to go to the request details report. So if you go to reporting, you'll see there are a few reports that show transactions in and out of your depot. There's the transaction report, which shows expired, damaged, in, out, basically everything that has happened to the stock in your depot over the course of a month. You have your consumption report, which shows just these issued numbers, just what you've actually consumed. And then you have your request details report, which essentially shows you your demand. It's not summarized. It's exactly like this page. It shows you by request, but it gives you all of the data that you need to calculate your demand. So I'm going to go to my request details report. And this brings me to an empty page, and I have to enter some report parameters. So the first thing I need to enter, which is autofilled for me based on my location, is the fulfilling location. This is the location that you're looking to do the forecasting for, the one that is fulfilling all the requests. So this is my location, which is distribution center. And then I'm going to pick my dates issued. And this is how I'm going to calculate my average, right? Because if I want to look at the last 6 months, I'm going to be dividing this number by 6, and that will be my monthly average. If I want to look at the last 12 months, I'm going to be dividing this number by 12, and that will give me my monthly average. So, and of course, the dates you use change your calculation because you may have had an increase in the last 3 months or a decrease in the last 3 months that changes the numbers depending on the time period that you use. So the dates that you choose are really important. In this case, I'm just going to choose the last 2 months. And I also have the option to put on some filters if I'd like. So if I only want to see a particular product, I can put it here. Of course, you can see the individual product on the stock card, but if you wanted to download it in Excel, then you could use this to just show the demand report for one product. You could also see it for a category of items. Those are that's very useful if you want to look at all your lab items or all your drugs. You can filter by formulary, which is something that each organization sets for themselves, but their own specific formulary lists, and also tags which is a separate way of categorizing products. And you can filter by reason code, so you can see only requests that have a specific reason code. Since we're using this to get our demand, so we want to see everything, we're not going to filter by reason code because we don't want to only see things that were changed for a specific reason. We want to see everything. And then destination, we could filter by destination, but in this case, if we only wanted to see a very specific destination, but in this case, I want to see everything. I want to see my total demand, right? So I'm not going to filter by that. So I'm not going to apply any filters. I'm just going to run the report. So this gives you your report in HTML. It's not the most beautiful report in when you're looking at it online. I highly recommend downloading it. That's what you're really going to want to do with this instead of looking at it just on this page. But it gives you basically exactly what you saw on the other page. So every request that has gone out of this depot during that time period, and for every product, and the quantity requested, the quantity issued, and the quantity demand. So this gives you a really detailed look at demand over time in your depot. But it's not really useful from a forecasting perspective yet, right? Because it's actually too much detail. So what you need to do is download it and manipulate it a little bit. So what we're going to do is press now, download data to get this data in Excel. Now, once we have this data in Excel, we can do some interesting things to calculate our demand. So for example, we could take a list of product codes I'm just going to remove the duplicates. And then we could use a sum-if formula to actually calculate the total demand for the time period that we've looked at. So I'm just going to write here. So I want to sum if the product code equals my product code, and I want to sum the demand quantity. And the nice thing about doing it this way, although it is a little more work for you, is that you can also then delete or exclude any requests that you think are not accurate. So for example, if I notice that there's one request for a particular product, which I can always sort by product, so I can see all of the requests for methyl dopa together. If I notice that there is one request that's really way out of line with the other ones, I could just delete that or change it to 0. And then that's no longer part of my demand calculation. So it is a few extra steps. OpenBoxes isn't calculating the demand for you. but it's giving you all the data that you need to actually do real forecasting and to edit and clean your data as you go, rather than if it gives you a number, then you might miss some of the details that you like, some data errors that you might need to correct. So once I have my total demand, I can just divide that by my number of months in my time period to get my average monthly demand. And it was 2, I think. It was 2 months. So that gives me my average monthly demand for every product. So it's a few extra steps, but in the end, it's actually quite an easy process. And the great thing is it gives you a lot of control over your data for your forecasting so that you can really do a lot of manipulation on your demand numbers and determine what is the best forecast for you. And that is a walkthrough of the request details report and the demand calculation in OpenBoxes. Thanks for listening.